It is past 10 o'clock on a winter night. Your child has had a fever since morning, and it won't break. You make a phone call, and within the hour, there are headlights in the driveway, footsteps on the porch, and a knock at the front door. The man standing there has a worn, big black bag in his hand. You greet him warmly. He has cared for you since you were a child, and he was there when your child was born. He comes inside, sits on the edge of the bed, and within a few minutes, he tells you exactly what is wrong and what to do about it. That is not a story from a novel. For millions of American families, that could have been any night. The family doctor, the general practitioner, the GP, was one of the most familiar figures in American life from the 1940s through the 1970s. Over time, without an announcement, he disappeared. You might not even be sure when it exactly happened. He just became harder to find, and then harder still, until one day you realize the thing you were looking for no longer existed in quite the same form. When he wasn't making home visits, his office was still familiar. The office was usually modest, like a converted house or a small suite in a downtown building. It had a waiting room with a few chairs and some magazines. You might wait 20 minutes or you might wait an hour, but you didn't mind. He was seeing someone else, and he was taking his time, but you knew he would take his time when it was your turn too. You called to schedule. There wasn't the option to schedule online, but you didn't miss what you didn't need. The exam room smelled like antiseptic and paper. The table had a strip of crinkled paper on the vinyl. He came in without rushing, sat down your chart, and an actual manila folder, sometimes thick with years of visits. He didn't need to open it. He knew it by heart. He asked how you were sleeping, asked about your appetite. If you were a child, he asked if you were keeping up with your chores and homework while he checked your ears, and he always had a piece of candy to offer you after your shots. When you weren't feeling well, he told you why, and you trusted him completely because he had never been wrong about you before. In the years after World War II, roughly half of all American physicians were general practitioners. They handled the full range of what people needed: pregnancies, broken bones, childhood illnesses, chronic conditions, the slow decline of old age. They delivered babies and sat with dying patients. They were the first call and often the last. Many of them had trained during or just after the war, when medical education was rigorous but broad. They were expected to know enough about everything to make sound decisions and to know when to send someone to a specialist, which was uncommon compared to today. The specialists were for serious or unusual cases. Most of life's medical needs stayed with a GP. He was also, in most communities, a trusted figure in a particular way. He had access to people's homes, their fears, and their bodies at their worst moments. The trust between you accumulated through the years and passed between generations. The shift began in the 1950s and accelerated sharply through the 1960s. Medical knowledge was expanding faster than any one person could track. Specialists that had barely existed before the war, cardiology, oncology, neurology, were becoming disciplines within their own deep bodies of research. Medical schools began organizing themselves around those fields. Residents who went into surgery or internal medicine earned more, gained more institutional standing, and worked in better funded hospitals than those who went into general practice. By the early 1960s, a cardiologist or a surgeon could often earn twice what a GP earned. For a young doctor leaving medical school with debt and ambition, that gap was hard to ignore. General practice began to look, within the profession itself, like the less serious path. At the same time, employer-sponsored health insurance which had grown rapidly after World War II, when wartime wage controls pushed companies to offer health benefits instead of raises, was changing the economics of how care was delivered. Patients were no longer paying their doctors directly, visit by visit. Insurance companies were paying, and the administrative structure that developed around that system favored the clear bill category that hospitals and specialists proved more naturally than the open-ended, long-term relationship of general practice. In December 1973, Congress passed the Health Maintenance Organization Act, which provided grants and loans to establish HMOs, removed certain state restrictions on them, and required employers with 25 or more workers to offer an HMO option alongside traditional insurance. By the late 1970s and throughout the 1980s, HMOs were reshaping how millions of Americans receive medical care. The primary care physicians became a gatekeeper within the plan rather than a personal doctor. As a result of these changes, when your employer changed your coverage, which happened with increasing regularity, your doctor often changed with it. According to the AMA statistics, there were nearly 58,000 general practitioners in the United States in 1970, which was more than in any single medical specialty. By 1997, that number had fallen below 1,700. While the newer family medicine specialty grew steadily, the old-style general practitioner had largely disappeared. As residency training programs multiplied and hospitals began requiring board certifications for staff privileges, fewer and fewer new doctors entered general practice at all. The family doctor hadn't just become less common, the path that once produced him had nearly closed. The change happened as a series of small adjustments that eventually changed what we expected from our primary care doctor. This led to the first time you had to choose a new doctor because your insurance changed. You entered an unfamiliar waiting room. The physician read your records on a screen, learning who you were while in the exam room with you, rather than already knowing you through family members. The visit was efficient until you were referred to a specialist for something your old doctor would have handled himself. It was for your own good. The medicine being practiced was more evidence-based. However, the relationship was organized around conditions and treatments. The old one had been organized around people. Family medicine still exists today. In February 1969, it was formally recognized as medicine's 20th specialty, in part as an attempt to preserve what was being lost, to train generalists who could provide continuous, comprehensive care. There are dedicated family physicians practicing now who work hard to maintain that older kind of relationship within requirements that don't always make it easy. Some concierge practices have returned to something close to the original model: smaller patient list, more time per visit, genuine availability. But these exist as alternatives rather than as the norm. The compounding economic incentives, institutional structures, genuine growth of medical knowledge, and a shift in how Americans pay for care transformed something that had been central to ordinary life. Your doctor knew your family's history without consulting a file, and when something worried you in the night, he was the person you called. Medical care was a relationship that you were born into, and when you no longer heard the footsteps on the front porch and had to explain your medical history to a new doctor, you felt like you lost a family member. If this brought back something you remember, your family doctor, that waiting room, a house call on a winter night, please like the video. It helps more people find it. If you haven't subscribed yet, we'd be glad to have you. Leave a comment. Tell us about the doctor you remember, how it worked in your town, or how it felt the first time that changed. We love to hear what this means to you. Thank you for watching The Not So Distant Past.